Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. As usual, it's Jacob Milham here with the one and only Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, happy Wednesday, my friend.
Happy Wednesday. You
Yes,
remember the old, I think it was probably Geico
it was
commercial
Greco.
with the camel? Hump
Yep.
day?
It was,
That,
listen, that commercial just had a stranglehold on pop culture for probably about 2 years, I
yeah,
would say.
the last time I worked in an office, it was the thing on Wednesday everyone was yelling hump day at each other.
So I wasn't old enough to remember I think it was Pizza Hut with the what's up thing. Like
No,
I wasn't.
that was Budweiser.
Was that Budweiser? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't old enough to experience that phenomenon, but I imagine that Hump Day was that on a similar level because like you just said it, I
Yeah,
still hear it.
yeah. People still say what's up?
Yeah, exactly. So, I know Michael Scott still says it in the office. So absolutely love that reference. And I just broke Jeremy a little bit. While Jeremy reboots real quick, make sure you go check out royalsreview.com, who makes this podcast happen. A lot of great written content over there. Also, highly suggest you go and join the comment community. Make your voice heard as a Royals fan over at royalsreview.com. One other housekeeping thing before we get too deep into it. Thank you very much for everyone who listens to us on Good Pods, which is not a super big podcasting platform, but those of you who do listen made us a top 10 baseball podcast so far in February. So always appreciate y'all's support
Wait,
over
5
there.
days into February, we're
I'll take it. I'll
all
take
right.
it. All right.
All right.
We're starting at the top. We can only go down from, but alas, here we are. So, speaking of some good Royals news, I would say, is the Royals
Some
announced,
free Royals content.
yeah, so you got a free Royals podcast here. We don't charge a dime, but also the Royals won't be charging a dime to fans who want to watch 10 whole games of the 2025 season. So they will be simulcasting 10 regular season broadcasts for Sunday games during it's select games. It's not going to be every single Sunday. It's not every single Sunday home day, nothing like that. We'll figure out the schedule later on. But, it opens up the Royals to reportedly almost 7 million households between KSMO and KCTV5. So I like that's pretty good news in my book. Jeremy, before I get your thoughts, I do understand fans saying more, 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 we want more. And like I'm sorry, not every team does this. So I appreciate the Royals when they do. I would love to watch every single game for free. It's just not the reality we live in, right, Jeremy?
So my first thought was 10 games. Well, that's not very many. If you're a diehard fan, it's like I can only watch 10 games. And if you're like not a fan, it's like, okay, well, I watched one baseball game, that watched 10 baseball games. That's not enough to get you hooked, especially not spread out over the course of the whole season. I was like, man, I don't know about all this. This seems weird. But then I was just thinking about it while you were talking. And I remember one year, I want to say it was probably 2001. I still had a permanent home in Kansas City. I was living with my family. I was still a kid. But my dad had a temporary assignment to Washington, D.C. We were living in Washington, D.C. for a year. Couldn't watch Royals games out in D.C. They didn't have, the MLB TV app then. This was in the old days,
Ooh,
kids.
sounds dangerous.
And I went back to Kansas City one weekend. My family went back for I don't remember what, and I desperately wanted to watch the Royals on a Sunday afternoon just because that I could finally after all this time of not being able to and wasn't able to, and it was very, very upsetting whole thing. But so that makes me like, man, for those who want it and can't afford it, those 10 games will be just like, yes, finally, I do get to watch.
Yeah, and that's definitely an aspect that I didn't think of before. Gray Media is the group who is partnering with the Royals to make this happen, is reportedly also going to be building out some other content that is going to help like hype up broadcasts and quote unquote connect fans to their favorite team like never before. It's very press releasey language, if you will. But at the end of the day, like these are probably going to be summer games where there is nothing else on to watch in a Sunday afternoon. We're going to have fans who are in this schedule of we watch Chiefs games on Sunday afternoons around here.
Sunday night.
Yep. Well, yeah.
Monday
Sorry,
night.
we don't have that many afternoon games. You know, it's a good problem to have as Chiefs fans. But I'm hopeful that that's part of the strategy here is that you're going to get some fans that are just going to add the Royals as a part of their routine and overall fall in love with the team a little
Maybe
bit
you should
more.
just do every Sunday then. I'm just saying.
I mean, that's not. I think that's a pretty good. I think that would be the best strategy. I don't know how many games that would come out to be. Like, even if you did every Sunday home game, I think that would be just a great strategy. And maybe that's how many games this adds up to.
I
I don't
don't
know for
think
sure.
it's April to September, so that's 6 months.
Yeah,
Times 4 is 24. Off the top of my head, it's going to be in that range.
right. But alas, that is what the Royals and Gray Media are giving fans right now. The team did say that they'll give out specific dates before opening day, which is on March 27th. So just keep an eye out on Royals.com for that, or RoyalsReview.com will also have some updates there. Some other updates that Royals fans and baseball fans at large got today is FanGraphs released their coveted first look at playoff odds for the 2025 season. Now, Royals fans should be pretty used to defying these odds. I will say there is last year, I think the Royals were just ahead of the White Sox with like a 1% chance of making the playoffs, and lo and behold, they made the playoffs. As of right now, the Royals sit in a better spot, but not great. 42.7% third in the American League Central, trailing the Twins, who lead the division with a 57% chance of making the playoffs. The Royals right now only have a 24.2% chance of winning the division. Jeremy,
What
before,
were the odds at the beginning of last year of winning the division? And you say
well,
only 24%?
let's see here.
Pretty sure it was 0.
Their odds at this time last year of winning the division 7.5%,
All right,
and
so
to make
3
the
times.
playoffs, yeah, and to make the playoffs period is about the same increase at 13.2%.
Yeah.
So that's a good spot, right?
Yeah, the other thing is I don't the FanGraphs algorithm obviously didn't watch the Twins last year. That did not work.
No,
And the Twins didn't get they still haven't no, they did finally sign a free agent today.
they did.
Who we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, interesting to me was the Guardians just took a huge nosedive.
Yeah.
Because they got rid of Josh Naylor, added Carlos Santana. Maybe age finally catches up to him. Got rid of Andres Jimenez, didn't replace him with anyone. He's just a mess over there in Cleveland. And, Detroit's good, getting better. They added Jack Flaherty back. Alex Bregman looks more and more like he's going to be a Tiger, which, again, it's like, well, that could be really bad for KC. It could be a Javi Baez situation like we talked about last time. I don't know. One interesting thing about Bregman, I don't know if you saw Dan Zimborski's FanGraphs,
Yeah.
where he put Bregman on every team just to see who would benefit the most, and the Royals would actually benefit the most. So maybe it's too bad the Royals are extremely unlikely to sign him.
Yeah, it
Um,
probably is.
yeah. So, but yeah, starting the year, I think the playoff odds projects them to about 82 wins. They had a standings projection that projected them to 81 wins. Those are much better projections than last year. I think they were in the low 70s, 73, 74, something like that.
Yeah.
But much better playoff odds. So, it does seem like they're starting in a better place this year, perhaps.
It does seem that way, and I will admit it does make me a little nervous that the Guardians are the team between the Royals and the White Sox, because I mean the Guardians just defy these odds year in and year out. It feels like. These projections are really high on the Tigers. That just matches how the baseball community as a whole feels about these Tigers right now, these projections don't even have a full win separating the Royals and the
Yeah.
Tigers right now. The margin of error is very, very slim right now.
I truly believe that the division is going to be a battle between the Royals and the Tigers. By the way, we haven't talked about the White Sox at all. They're projected to 100 losses in the playoffs. How are you so bad that you're projected, so like your 50% outcome is 100
100
losses?
Yeah, that's bad. That's really bad.
Just insane. But yeah, so I think the division is pretty much between the Royals and the Tigers. I do not understand the projection for the Twins. I think that they're most likely to come in fourth this year. I think, like you said, the Guardians overperformed, but I also think that they got worse than they were last year, and they were barely better than the Tigers and the Royals last year. And the Tigers and the Royals have both improved.
Yes, they have. Well, I will before I go down that road, I will say that according to the Pacoda projections that came out earlier this week, if you want to read more about the Royals specific stuff, that's up on royalsreview.com. I don't want us to dive too deep into that. But I was surprised to see that according to those projections, the Royals are one of 4 teams who have lost more than one WAR this offseason than gained. At least the other teams have held,
Yeah.
they've treaded water or added. The Royals are one of the few teams who have lost in those projections. So maybe that's fueling this downturn a little bit more. Of course, those are all separate projections and things like that. At the end of the day, this is all math. These are all educated guesses.
I just want to also clarify, because I had this question when I first saw those. This is not Bobby Witt is projected for 7 WAR instead of 10 WAR. This is, when they calculate this, it's their projection at the beginning of the offseason compared to their projection now. So the Bobby Witt Jr. projection hasn't changed. It's which players they've added and stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Another note of clarification. So I think Jeremy and I spoke about it a little bit during last podcast, and we were chatting about it on Slack as well. So if I was drawing some confusion on the option status for Sam Long and Carlos Hernandez, because they were they were the only 2 Royals players who were listed as having 4 option years, which, traditionally players only have 3. If you get optioned down to minor leagues, you use up 1 and you can use 3 in consecutive seasons, yada, yada, yada. But with both of those players, they were eligible for a 4th option year last year. There is a scenario where I believe it's if a player has used up 3 option years within their first like 5 professional seasons, and they have to hit another couple of wickets. Like, they were only active for X amount of days in each one of those seasons. It's a very minute possibility, but they were only eligible for those options last year. So they are at 0 options, both of them right now. I reached out to some folks at Pitchers List, and I also got some clarification from the folks at Roster Resource, and they explained that ruling to me. So just so you know, the more you know, right?
Yeah.
But that is something that we will have to keep an eye on when it comes to the roster. Speaking of the roster, MLB.com put out their 2025 all underrated team this morning. I know this sounds like just peak offseason content. Even these full-time writers, they gotta find stuff to fill up the website with. But I was surprised to see 2 Royals.
2 for now.
2 for now on
2 for now.
on the Royals list, because Jeremy is manifesting. He's really putting in the energy, putting in this energy for left fielder Taylor Ward to join the Royals. But for right now, there's only 2 Kansas City players on this all underrated team. Starting pitcher Michael Wacha and first baseman Vinny Pasquantino. Now, this isn't they had some pretty strict rules to who can appear on this.
I call them strict, but they did have some objective criteria that they used.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry. They had very clear criteria.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Going down and looking at Vinny, I mean, it seems like Vinny is really catching on with some of these evaluators, some of these writers around the league. A lot of folks are looking at his 2022, and I know this is what Royals fans were doing in 23 and 24. It didn't really materialize, but we're like, I was kind of surprised to see him as an underrated first baseman, but he's probably underrated around the league as a whole, right, Jeremy?
I mean, he fits the criteria, right?
Yeah,
He no all-star appearances or no recent all-star appearances, no silver sluggers, no rookie of the year, no MVP votes, all this stuff, and his numbers are actually pretty good. I mean, he the 1.5 FWAR last year. That's not bad. I know that we talk a lot about the 108 WRC plus and how that's not high enough and blah blah blah. But for the first time in a while, I was kind of when I was reading over that, I was kind of forced to look at the actual like the raw numbers of, 19 home runs and 30 doubles last year.
yeah,
That's pretty good. The 97 RBIs. We've talked about, what I was doing with RBIs earlier this offseason to show that like that means something. I do think he fits the criteria and he actually had a pretty good year.
he did.
I'm interested to see what he can do this year, starting the year healthy, starting the year not with almost a whole year of having not played, and hopefully get some of that pressure off, get some of the rust off, and get because he started off. Remember, like the first 2 weeks, he didn't have an RBI, and then he
Yeah,
didn't play the
pretty
last
slow,
month, and he finished the year with 97 RBIs. The guy,
insane.
the guy was hot when he was hot. So I'm really interested to see what he can do. Hopefully, with his first full season this year.
Yeah, hopefully so. That is also just an astounding fact of his career so far. Like he was red hot in 2022, but that was an entire season. Injured in 23, injured in 24. So health is really driving his outlook, I would say.
Yeah.
But I mean, also he's just some more seasoning. He's already got a great plate approach, and I don't know, man. It is just hearing from him this offseason. He really should get the Royals fan base going. He's 27 years old. He's already defied the odds by getting this far, and I'm really hopeful that we have like an 800 OPS season from Vinny Pasquantino.
One of the other things I want to mention is like if he was a mediocre left fielder or even a not great left fielder, his WAR would be like 3, maybe
Yeah.
4, because of that positional penalty you get at first base. So, and I've certainly argued in the past that the positional penalty is maybe I haven't argued publicly, I've argued it privately, that the positional penalty makes sense because of the way that teams use first basemen and such. Like he's not far at all from being an extremely productive player. And I think a certain segment of advanced statistics Royals fans, I think advanced statistics are important. I obviously reference them a lot, but I think there's a certain segment that are just focusing on a couple of them and being like, well, no, he sucks. And I don't think that that is an accurate assessment of Vinny Pasquantino.
Hey, maybe we got some time before the offseason, my friend. There might be some time to prove those doubters wrong. Another guy who I will say I doubted him when he came to Kansas City, but he proved me wrong, proved several folks wrong, and he also landed on this underrated team. Starting pitcher Michael Wacha. Of course, he was really the big contract from the Royals this past offseason, 3-year, $51 million extension, and he is worth that and then some. I would say he had a great year in Kansas City, but this is just more of the same. The writer for this article cites his 128 ERA plus over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So like that's 12th best amongst any pitcher. So I mean, Waka is I think of him still as a Cardinals guy, right? Like he's still in my mind as a Cardinals guy because he had such a great run with them and then it just petered off at the end. But he has really quietly had a very good stretch. He had a really good time with the Padres, a great season last year with the Royals. And I don't know, it's all signs are pointing that he should have another solid season in 2025 with Kansas City, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely. We gotta. I mean, talking about the Royals being smart this offseason, one of the smartest things they did is sign Michael Wacha to that extension as early as they did because they paid him a lot less money than players very similar to him ended up getting.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people were like 351. I don't know if he's worth that, but it looks like a real deal now.
Yes, it does.
And it's just, and he, remember, is the Royals' third best starter. Of course, Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo don't qualify for the underrated award because they were both all-stars last year, both got some Cy Young votes. So but still, third best starter is the best guy who didn't meet any of those, disqualifying criteria. Just absolutely very exciting to
Yeah.
see that.
Exactly. Heading into his age 33 season, this is a good spot to be at. We should definitely know that starting pitchers nowadays are going deep into their 30s when it comes to their MLB careers. So the hope is that Wacha is effective for the entirety of his contract, and even if he's not, I mean, frankly, he gave them a bargain in 24. He should do the same in
Kind of
2025.
kind of feels like guys either hit walls at 31 or 32, or they get to go to 40,
Yeah.
and beyond, and he's past the wall. So it
Yes.
does feel like Wacha. I mean, he's probably not going to continue to be as good as he was last year, but he should decline gracefully, I hope.
Yes. There you go. I think that's a good way to put it. Some other player news that Royals fans should be aware of. So we could talk about this overall theme a little bit more. But the outfield crop in free agency getting mighty small.
Yeah.
It is shrinking
I mean,
fast.
it's gone, I think, at this
Yeah,
point.
is that the official? I think it's like
Ramon
Canna and that's it.
Laureano, Randall Grichuk, and Harrison Bader are all off the board now.
Yeah.
Did Verdugo sign? I think I saw that he signed, but I don't remember.
I don't believe he did sign.
Okay, well,
I haven't seen anything on that.
don't really need Verdugo with MJ out there already. So, that's
Very
basically it.
players.
It's Verdugo or bust at this point. If you're looking at free agents, I think the Royals were tied to Grichuk. I don't hate that they didn't get him.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things about the Laureano signing, I mean, I've already talked about Taylor Ward. So these guys being off the board to me is just like, well, now Taylor Ward looks even more enticing. Go get him. Go get him. Let's get him.
Mm-hmm.
But another guy who looks kind of enticing, Ramon Laureano, signed with the Orioles
Yeah.
and seems primed to take playing time away from Heston Kjerstad out
Yeah.
there. The Orioles, for whatever reason, don't seem interested in playing him, despite the fact that he has done nothing but hit his entire professional career. Would the Orioles like to trade Heston Kjerstad to the Royals for Alec Marsh? They need some starting pitching depth,
They do.
and a reliever or two. I would
Maybe.
give up, I think, Alec Marsh and two relievers for a Heston Kjerstad, a young stud outfielder
Yeah.
with a very promising future. 25 years old, I believe, 25 or 26 this year. So you'd be getting in on the ground floor of a guy who could be something special.
He absolutely could be. And this is I mean, I know that I've been preaching a little bit for Royals to just or Royals fans to focus on the players that are in Kansas City right now. But as teams are shifting away from the free agency pool, they are gonna have to go to trade talks. And you have hammered Ward home. I do want to say, friend of the podcast, Jared Perkins brought up a couple of other good names: Adolis Garcia, Starling Marte. These aren't
I'm excited about them. So
right.
I get it. That's why I keep talking about Ward. I'm like, Ward would be something special in Kansas City, I think.
Exactly. Before I get too deep, so I did. If you listen to us on Spotify, you do have access to our poll questions for each episode. I'm not great about putting polls on every single episode, especially in the off season, but I did put a poll with our last one asking if you the listener would take Jeremy's proposed deal for Taylor Ward.
Which
Pulling
was
it up right
Angel
now.
Gurpa, Hunter
Mhm.
Harvey, and Carter Jensen,
Yep.
Taylor Ward.
So it went 60-40 on yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The Royals review commentariat was not as impressed with that proposal.
Oh, I imagine not, Jeremy. I imagine not.
I think that the fans in general, but especially the Royals review commenters, get really set on prospect. He's a prospect. He's our prospect. We can't trade him. He's our future. Well, is he though? I got to tell you that if the Orioles don't believe in Heston Kjerstad, right? Well, Carter Jensen has not hit like Heston Kjerstad. So if you're thinking he's a sure thing, when other teams look at better prospects and go, he's not a sure thing, you're living in a dream. You're living in a fool's world. You gotta look for what's real out there.
Right, and I do think like that's why the Orioles would entertain a deal centered around MLB help right now, because that's what that team needs right now. They already have one of the best farm systems in the league. You can't imagine that they would prioritize prospect power over immediate help at the major league level.
And
Um,
I'm not saying that deal would work. I gotta go play on baseball trade values. But one of the when JJ Picollo was talking about the Royals' opportunities for getting an outfielder, he was saying, another team signs a player and then they realize they don't have room for everybody and they decide to move another one, is how that will happen. So that's why I'm looking at Baltimore and going, okay, they signed Ramon Laureano. Who's the odd man out? What can the Royals profit off of this? And let me also tell you, as much as other people feel about Carter Jensen, that's how I feel about Alec Marsh, right? I love
okay,
Alec Marsh. Not as much as I love Chris Bubich, but I love Alec Marsh. And so for me to say I'm willing to trade him for Kjerstad, I'm telling you that's a guy. I feel like that's a move that could benefit both teams probably. But I'll sit on some baseball trade values, and maybe that's what I'll write up for my next article is some kind of trade proposals for Garcia and Kjerstad and Ward and well, I've already done Ward, but yeah.
yeah,
That's probably
I think that'd be
what
fun.
you could look forward to next is some ideas for, okay, how can the Royals get out of this?
So if you go pull up the projected depth charts for the Orioles right now, because it is a pretty, they've added a lot in the outfield this offseason. Tyler O'Neill, their big free agent splash.
I forgot about him.
Yep, slotted in left field right now. Colton Cowser, another just prime prospect that is now a contributor for them, batting fifth in right field. And then Cedric Mullins rounding out the outfield in center field. And then you go down to the projected bench, Laureano. I mean, I'm sorry, if you sign Laureano for the deal that he's on, that's not a flyer. You are signing him to be a contributor at some level. He's starting out on the bench, and then Kjerstad is on the bench right now. But it is, if you scroll down and you look at just their overall outfield, they also have Dylan Carlson. They also have Daz Cameron. They have a lot at the
Another
AAA level.
another guy that has been kind of talked about as maybe the Orioles could move on from him is Cedric Mullins, who is in the last year of his contract. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't hate grabbing a Cedric Mullins. He plays center field obviously for the Orioles. You'd move him into the corner for the Royals, and I think you'd get above average defense from a Cedric Mullins in the corner. But a last year of his deal, he's going to be in his age 30 season. He's not going to cost as much as
Probably
a
not.
Heston Kjerstad. So that's another deal that maybe we need to look at.
Yeah,
Maybe the Royals
possibly
need to look
so.
at.
The scary thing though is I think the Orioles only move on from Mullins if one of their two like top center field prospects are ready to go. Their 2023 first round draft pick Enrique Bradfield Jr., who I loved in that draft. And then also I think that they got a steal in Vance Honeycutt, a North Carolina product in last year's draft, drafted him at 22nd overall. Both those guys are slotted to start in high A and double A respectively. So those guys might be fast risers, and I think maybe you're looking at a trade deadline deal. If everything goes right for the pitching and everything goes right for the outfield for the Orioles and the Royals, then you trade from those strengths and you try to help each other out mutually, similar to the Reds and Royals trade from this offseason. Honey's going to say hi real quick. Hold on.
Hi, honey.
Oh, you just came to pester me as usual?
I
Fair
was just
enough.
going to be annoying in the background.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, that is just about going to do it for us here. But Jeremy, there is some news that video game savants were certainly excited to hear
Well,
about.
I mean, if you read the comments, not so much. A lot of
Okay.
people are like, "Oh, the graphics don't look any better. I'm not doing it." But MLB The Show had its first gameplay trailer for MLB The Show 25 coming out March 18th. I am super stoked because I don't care about the graphics. The graphics are fine. I want gameplay.
Yeah.
And so there was a gameplay trailer. They talked a little bit about some new stuff they're doing. They've apparently improved the AI for trades and free agent negotiations. So that should be really cool for those franchise players. Road to the Show players are going to get to start in high school now, and then they can allow themselves to go on to college, and they're supposed to have authentic college sounds, including team chants and the sound of aluminum bats and chain link fences.
Ooh, fun.
So really kind of expanding the Road to the Show mode a lot. That excites me because one of the things that frustrates me about Road to the Show is that, starting the minor leagues, I'm like, I want to get to the big leagues, and it takes so long to upgrade your stats. And if I start younger and further away, maybe by the time I get to the big leagues, I'll actually have like a really solid player. And then of course they're updating their premier mode, the one that brings in all the bucks, Diamond Dynasty. They're adding apparently a new roguelike mode for another board game mode, roguelike, called Diamond Quest. And they didn't really talk about what that is, but it's there. They mentioned it exists, and I'm all for something that adds a little bit more replayability to that Diamond Dynasty mode. I've been playing Diamond Dynasty all off season. I
Yeah.
get tired of the PvP. I'm not good enough to dominate, so I'm just like, whatever. I love earning the cards, though. I just love
Yep.
completing the collections. So giving me something more to collect, or making the collection take longer but still be really fun, appeals to me a lot. So I'm looking forward to seeing more as they reveal it. They're doing a third season of the Negro Leagues storylines. So I'm excited to see who we're going to see featured this time.
I definitely think that the year-over-year growth of MLB The Show since COVID has just been stupendous. I really, really do. The later games seemed very stagnant, much like many of that happens to sports franchises. They have periods of stagnation. It happens. They focus on making money. They allocate resources elsewhere. But I really enjoy what MLB The Show has become since it stopped being a PlayStation exclusive game as well. I think that's fueled some fire. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this iteration. It comes out in the middle of March, right before opening day, so you're hitting that baseball excitement high. It's just a good time, and I don't know, I really do like that they did the what's it called, Jeremy, where like you can earn cards right now in
Oh, the now and
25.
later packs, yeah.
Yeah. So like I mean that's one reason why I'm still playing the game. Usually I would just hang the game up for a little bit and say like, "Oh, well, I'll pick it back up and start the grind again." No, I'm still playing right now just for those hey, I know I got like 20 packs waiting for me whenever I
Exactly.
go load up the game.
Yeah, and they did just add, when they did the gameplay trailer yesterday, as we're recording this on Tuesday, they added a now and later program, which I was very much looking forward to. It turns out it's like, I think it's 7, 8, 9 moments to play, so it didn't take very long to get through, unfortunately, because I was like, I want something to play for a month. Didn't work out that way, but hey, it also was an easy 9 now and later packs.
There you go.
And Willie Mays, if I had any reason to keep playing, I've already collected everything, so I'm just like, all right, I guess I'm good. But
Yeah.
they also, it looks like Roger Clemens and Manny Ramirez are going to get included as
Ooh, interesting.
legends. Hopefully, with Ichiro being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, we're going to finally see him return to MLB The Show. So just a lot of really fun stuff. And I know one of the biggest complaints I always heard from Diamond Dynasty people was the seasons mode that they added, I guess, a few years back. It's like you can only play with your cards for so long before you have to build a whole new set. They're doing away with that. You can play with all your cards all year long in Diamond Dynasty. So, and finally, I do have to, one thing, I got to shout them out for the ability to play the mode. You can spend money if you want, but you don't have to. You can get everything by just playing the game, and I'm not even that good, and I can still earn every card. And then use the tokens I earned by playing the game to buy the cards that I didn't quite earn. So in the era of live service where everything is you've got to spend money if you want to complete your collections, to have a game that doesn't force you to do that is just awesome.
Yes.
Of course, they'll probably change something this year so that it doesn't work that way anymore, and I'm going to end up sad and frustrated, but I'm going to love it as long as I can.
Yeah. Hey, also, this is my usual plug because I've been playing around with it every now and then, and I forget how easy it is to get sucked into this baseball game. Out of the Park Baseball 2025 is still easily playable. I do have some friends, like most of the time, folks like playing MLB the Show because it's focused on the gameplay. It's focused on the 9 innings and things like that. If you're looking for like a front office simulator, though, Out of the Park Baseball is the way to go. So go do some Googling on that and see if that's something you like.
It's funny, I got an opportunity to review. I got a review copy of Out of the Park Baseball a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
like the Royals review, and I did not love that iteration of the game. Felt like there were some serious flaws with it, and funnily enough, I haven't got another review copy. That's about.
Interesting. I wonder why that is. I've enjoyed it more since they got like official MLB licenses and stuff like that. So that's certainly helped the process. Alrighty, Jeremy, what do you say we do some reviews and get on out of here, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I am going a little offbeat with my review. Wait, hold on. No, I already did the baseball card play. What am I going to review? I am going to review this book, George Orwell's 1984. The reason this isn't time sensitive, I've always, no matter what's going on in the real world, I've always suggested this book. It's not a crazy long book. It is a very digestible, scary book at times, but I also really fell in love with this book because this was a high school book, and my English teacher made us annotate in the book things like that. Enjoy going back and reading, like, what was 16-year-old Jacob thinking about this book and how has that changed? But it's a classic. It's been around forever for a reason. It's one of George Orwell's books that I think is a must read along with Animal Farm. So if you're looking for something new to read that's still fiction, still has a lot of ties to reality, George Orwell's 1984 is a good one for you. Jeremy, what you got?
Yeah, I've never been able to get my hands on 1983, so I just feel like I'm not prepared to read it.
Gotcha. Well, you really have to start with 1776, and you got to read each one before that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm going to review a video game I finished recently. That's, if you follow me on Blue Sky, you know what I've been playing. I've been playing Metaphor Ray Fantasio, which is the newest Atlas game. I've heard, and I hope it's true after playing this game, that it's supposed to be Atlas's kind of third RPG pillar, along with Shin Megami Tensei and the Persona games. It borrows a lot from the Persona series, but it iterates on the kind of the way the gameplay of those games in some ways that really work, a lot of ways that really work, and a few ways that I think I would go back to the old way. But it's a giant step forward for an Atlas RPG. It was a tremendous amount of fun to play. It's a kind of a medieval fantasy game, turn-based RPG, and medieval fantasy is not my period, my era of storytelling. I don't care for it.
Okay.
But I loved this game. It is a riff on medieval storytelling in that it's not knights in shining armor. It has, so instead of humans, it has 8 tribes of people that are all very humanoid. One of them is called the Clamar, and they're humans except they have horns. And then there's the Parapus, who are humans except they have animal ears and tails. And then there's the Ressant, which are basically elves. They're humans with pointed ears, and on and on and on. And then there's also, but there are humans in this game. They're just the terrifying monsters that you have to fight. So the game is called Metaphor. So there's a metaphor for you. One of the bosses that you fight, one of the storylines, just for a mild spoiler, is you go to this city that's led by this religious and political leader who has been slowly but steadily feeding her citizens to a human baby. that she thinks is her child. And she's like, oh, we got to put a stop to this, and she's putting out rewards and saying, these bad things keep happening. We can't let anyone into our village. Metaphor Ray Fantasio.
I like it.
So, your political leaders, your religious leaders have your best interests at heart when they say they do. But yeah, it's so much fun, and the cast is pretty good. That's one area that I was like, they're not quite as charismatic as some of the Persona casts, but there's a couple real standouts there. I won't say who because I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who don't know who's going to show up. But there's a couple guys that I absolutely adored. It's can be kind of a darker story, but I really had a lot of fun with it, and I can't wait to see. They definitely set it up so that there could be a sequel, and like I said, I heard that it's supposed to be the third pillar of Atlas RPGs. I can't wait to see if they do another one and what that will look like. It was a lot of fun.
I like it. All right. Well, folks, that is going to do it for us today on the Royals Rundown podcast. Genuinely, wherever you're listening to us at, thank you for being here with us. Please, if you want to never miss an episode or want to support the podcast further, make sure you subscribe, follow, rate, review us wherever you're listening. Also, make sure you go check out royalsreview.com. We post every single episode there too, if that's how you want to track the podcast, but also a lot of great Royals content going up over there. If you want to follow along with us on social media, you can find our links down in the podcast description below. There, Jeremy Greco. I am Jake Milham. Thank you so much for being with us, and until next time, go Royals!